Good evening. You're watching PNC's News Now. We are broadcasting live in Saipan and in Guam. I'm Clint Rogel.
And I'm Janella Carrera. Thanks for tuning in. Topping your news tonight, Dedido Vice Mayor Andrew Peter Beneventi's violent history was highlighted during a magistrate's hearing today. He appeared in court to face charges related to a terrorizing complaint from last week in which he's accused of pointing a rifle at several people. Dedido Vice Mayor Andrew Peter Beneventi was arrested over the weekend for allegedly terrorizing two people in Barrigada Heights by pointing his rifle at them as they were backing out of a driveway. But as Judge Alberto Tolentino points out in court, this isn't the first run-in the vice mayor has had with the law.
The court does note that there was a previous case that was complied with and otherwise disposed of according to law.
That case involves a family violence complaint from February 2013 in which Beneventi's wife told police that her husband threatened to shoot her. That case, however, was expunged.
The earlier 2013 case was, are they related?
That is the one that the police report of family violence is expunged case, Your Honor. But this one is the victim stated that there wasn't a prior incident with the defendant.
In the prior incident, Badarao says the victims filed a complaint about Beneventi to Dedido Mayor Melissa Savares, but no criminal complaint with the police was ever filed.
People would like to request a $7,500 cash bail in this case based on the nature and the seriousness of the charges.
One of the things the court also has to look at is the particular characteristics of yourself, including the fact that you were a lifelong resident of Guam. You are the Dedido Vice Mayor and a member of the Mayor's Council. But given the prior history, that causes the court some concern. The court agrees with the government that a cash bail is warranted at this time.
The complaint says that the victims were backing out of a driveway at a residence in Barrigada Heights when he noticed the vice mayor standing on the side of the road pointing a rifle at them. A second victim reported hearing Beneventi yelling, quote, "You better slow down or next time I'm going to shoot you." Inside the car were the two victims, their daughter, and a fourth passenger. Dedido Mayor Melissa Savares says she has counseled Beneventi in the past when the victims had first reported the complaint, but for now, he can only be placed on paid leave until the case is resolved, at which point the Mayor's Council will decide how to proceed. She notes that the vice mayor is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law.
The Guam Waterworks Authority is buying less water from the Navy's Fena water treatment system because it's more expensive. To make up for it, GWA is rerouting water from the central and northern areas of Guam. And this rerouting of water is causing more strain on the system and resulting in breaks down in Agate and Santa Rita. On Saturday, there was a water main break in Agate, and this morning, there was a break in Santa Rita. GWA is reducing its dependency on Navy water from Fena and instead sending water from the north to Agate and Santa Rita.
We have enough water to send from the north to the south, but the system is just still not quite up to handling that kind of maneuvering. And so we're working really hard, but it's just we need to probably just take a pause on it, and you know, keep working towards that goal of really reducing that Navy purchase water, or to the day when GWA finally does Fena gets returned to Guam Waterworks.
GWA spokeswoman Heidi Ballendorf told PNC in a previous interview that this rerouting of water is resulting in breaks to their old water lines in Agate and Santa Rita. In fact, on Saturday, a 6-inch line broke in Agate. Anna DeRocco's house is just a few feet away from that break.
What happened is when that thing burst up the pipe on the road, everything break off on the ground, right? Because the water comes up, maybe about 10 hours. It's about 10 hours that the water was out.
Then just this morning, a water line broke in the Hyundai subdivision of Santa Rita. Ernie Redmond has been living in Santa Rita for over 30 years. This morning, a water pipe broke right in front of his house.
This, I believe, is the third outage we've had in the last month because of water breaks. Recently, we started having water pressure issues again. We had them for many, many years. It seemed like they got it corrected, and now it's coming back again.
Chelsea Robles lives on Cross Island Road in the higher elevations of Santa Rita. Have you been noticing more low water pressure lately?
Lately, like about since like starting January, and comes low, comes up strong. Then sometimes this lately Friday, I notice it's low pressure until this day. This morning I water my plants, it's low pressure today. Yeah, it takes long to water my plants.
So far, there have been at least 6 major breaks in the villages of Santa Rita and Agate since GWA began rerouting more water from the north.
I just hope it doesn't get any worse. I mean, one thing I can say is we haven't had water rationing for quite a few years, so I hope that doesn't start up again.
Captain Glenn Shepard, commanding officer of Naval Facilities Engineering Command Marianas, issued a public release this morning explaining the reason for the Navy's increased water rates. Captain Shepard says the rates were increased primarily to make required investments in system upgrades and to recoup accumulated losses the Navy incurred from 2007 to 2014. Tune in tomorrow night as Captain Shepard sits down with PNC to speak about the Navy's water rates and about the topic of a fully integrated water system.
Police arrested 2 men that rode a school bus into Teason High School, apparently drunk. PNC's Rizal Romanes has more in this report.
2 men who appeared to be intoxicated sneaked into a school bus headed for Teason High on Friday.
They promptly went over to the individuals and realized that they were not students of the school. They brought them to the school office, where they then contacted the airport police to come and take over custody of the individuals.
The officer also noticed that a minor student seen hanging out with the 2 men also smelled of alcohol.
So there's a third individual who was with the other 2, who is a student of the school and was also brought into the school office, and the school took the appropriate administrative action. Upon their investigation, they notified the parents and the police and took their administrative action in accordance with our policies and procedures.
When the 2 men arrived at Teason High School, they were able to get into the cafeteria with the rest of the students before classes started. However, not long after, a student reported the 2 mysterious men to a school resource officer. Malay says there were no other reported violations from other students, and the school responded quickly. According to the magistrate's report, the 2 men were drinking alcohol beforehand and met up at the bus stop. Ronaldo Ressa and Marcin Zacarias, both 21 years of age, were arrested and charged with public drunkenness. Rizal Romanes, PNC News.
Former Senator Bob Klitsky warns Gov Guam that they can be sued by parents whose children attend public schools because they're not getting the adequate education the Department of Education promises to give them. PNC's Rizal Romanes continues her education reporting in this story.
If your child goes to any public school on island and isn't getting an adequate education, you can sue Gov Guam, says former Senator Bob Klitsky. He tells PNC that it's been 10 years since the bill he authored, Every Child is Entitled to an Adequate Education Act, became law, and the Department of Education continues to fail to meet the 14 requirements listed for an adequate education. Klitsky tells us his observation in the last 10 years.
A lack of a sense of urgency. When there's no teacher in a classroom, or when a whole class doesn't have books, that should be treated like a fire in a wastebasket. Not something that we put in a report and send it out and do it every month, and it just becomes a routine. A lack of a sense of urgency.
Klitsky says DOE's major problems are the lack of textbooks and certified teachers. In fact, he points out that according to the latest report, various elementary schools still do not have enough math, science, and social studies book for all of their students.
It's surprising that in this day and age we can't get books to kids, because pretty hard for a child to learn if he doesn't have a certified teacher and if he doesn't have the proper textbooks.
Klitsky also says the superintendent's report isn't complete. He says by law, the DOE superintendent is required to make monthly reports to the governor, legislature, and the Education Policy Board. The report has to state problems at the schools, what needs to be fixed, and how much it will cost to get it fixed.
And it's really, really very sketchy, because it only is an account of the things that are missing, and it doesn't tell how much it would cost to fix those things that need fixing.
Klitsky says the legislature is supposed to appropriate the necessary amounts of money requested by DOE to provide an adequate education. We asked Klitsky if he's seen improvements since John Fernandez took over as DOE superintendent about 2 years ago.
I can't say that I see dramatic improvements. I can't say that I see we're falling any farther behind than we've been in the last few years. The report that you showed me, if that's all there is to the report, pretty disappointing because the act requires so much more.
Rosal Romanes, PNC News.
Parents are being advised to watch for signs of whooping cough as the island's third case of pertussis was recently confirmed. This time, immunization program manager Annette Uggin says it was a 5-month-old child who contracted the illness. The previous 2 cases were in a 2-month-old and an 11-year-old student at Untalan Middle School. Pertussis is a highly contagious bacterial disease of the respiratory tract. Since none of the 3 cases have been found to be related, Uggin says it is important for parents to watch for symptoms of the illness as it can be difficult to detect at first.
Pertussis starts out like a common cold, runny nose, watery eyes, and then it's the cough that after maybe 1 to 2 weeks it starts to get worse. You're having coughing fits, difficulty breathing, and it maybe affects the younger children where they start to turn blue because they can't get oxygen in them. Then they have some instances where it's post-tussive vomiting because the coughing fit is so strong and so long that they actually vomit after coughing, or they just can't really eat or breathe.
To prevent pertussis, it's recommended that children begin receiving their vaccination at 2 months old. To see the Center for Disease Control and Prevention's recommended vaccination schedule, visit our website at pacificnewscenter.com.
All right, and speaking of the whooping cough.
The whooping cough.
The whooping cough. Blake Watson whoops it up for us in sports next.
Nice.
Hey, do what Janela Carrera did and run to the PNC Sports Report. Well, not yet. Don't get overzealous. I'll tell you when. You'll know when it's time. Sports Report. I'll race you there. See you soon.